Games can be frustrating, and challenge is usually a good thing. We might get stuck on a puzzle for longer than we'd like, or have an enemy encounter set us back farther than expected, and it's acceptable. But some games f*** us. Sometimes we run into a brick wall, completely halting our progress, or get screwed so royally that there's no point in continuing. It doesn't happen often. We couldn't think of more than 2 or 3 moments in our lifetimes, but almost everyone at GT had a sob story to tell. Here, in their own words, are the top 10 games that f***ed us.
Fable 3 f***ed me. Fable 3, the third Fable game in the Fable trilogy before Fable started going off and making games that weren't Fable. And the whole thing about Fable 3 was that you were king, and that there was this huge fight that was going to be coming at the end of the game, that there was no way to win this fight. And your brother was a big ass, and you had to deal with your brother, and he was being really cruel to people, but you find out that he's actually only being cruel to people because he needs to raise money, so he's got to really tax people and do these awful things because he's got to raise money, because he's got to build an army, because this darkness is coming to basically destroy the kingdom. So there's this dichotomy in the story of Fable 3 where like, you need money or you need to be nice to people, and there's no way to do both. But there is actually, because in Fable, ever since the first Fable, there are mini games and real estate and, you know, selling loot, and there's all sorts of ways to just make a ridiculous amount of money. So when I went into Fable 3 and they said, you know, you're not going to have enough money to support this army, so you really have to decide whether you want to screw people over to save the kingdom or whether you want to be nice to people, and then we'll all have to fight this almost unwinnable fight at the end of the game. And I thought immediately, from recognizing that in Fable 3, oh, I'm going to have the best of both worlds, because I'm going to save up enough money, and because I'm going to be completely patient and take my time playing the game and just have a ton of money and then finish the story and have the best of both worlds. Well, the story progression via the calendar in Fable 3 is extremely ambiguous. So when you finish a story segment, the story leaps forward at completely random intervals of time. So it might be like, it might jump a year, or it might jump 2 months, or it might jump a week. You don't know, and it like interchanges those, you know, periods of time throughout the game. And so I think it was something like 3 months away from when the attack was going to happen that I was stopped at the story, and I figured, okay, I'm going to do one more chapter in the story and move ahead, and then it'll probably be like 3 days before they attack. And it jumped from 3 months or something equivalent to that amount of time to the war. And even though I had the money in front of me, I was actually physically at that moment standing in front of all the riches that I had built up. I couldn't spend any of it on the army because it was actually time to fight. Like they were like, oh nope, the army's here. You know, even though you're king, we're not going to give you any prep on the army, on this giant massive darkness monster showing up. We got to go deal with this fight now. Sorry you didn't save enough money. We told you it was going to be difficult, but you didn't. You just set an arbitrary jump in time that prevented me from actually having the best of both worlds and you know, building up all of the money that I had spent a really long time building up, because you just automatically oversaved my save and you f***ed me.
Let the battle for Albion begin.
Jet Force Gemini f***ed me. So in 1999 on the Nintendo 64, Rare is pumping out a lot of games. You've got Donkey Kong 64, you've got Banjo-Kazooie, but you've also got Jet Force Gemini, which is a strange third-person shooter, which is kind of ahead of its time on the Nintendo 64, but it doesn't control very well, but it's still a pretty interesting game, so I'm having a lot of fun with it. But in order to 100% the game, and in fact complete the game and get the real ending, you need to rescue all of the tribals, which basically tiny little pandas, scattered throughout all of the levels. Okay, fine, I like animals, I'll rescue some pandas. Turns out that the enemies in those levels are also hunting those pandas, and if they kill them, you have to start the level over completely. And if you don't rescue all the pandas in time, then you're going to have to play the whole thing over again. So there's one particular level where there's an enemy that specifically hunts down pandas, and you don't know where they are. And so every time I play the level, I'd pick up all of them but one, and never find the last one. And it's because this guy was hunting them down. I never beat the game. I killed a lot of pandas myself out of rage. I don't like pandas anymore.
EverQuest f***ed me. In 1999, I was 10 years old, and I had been reading in game magazines about EverQuest, this online, massively multiplayer game with these huge landscapes where you could team up with other people to take down these gigantic foes. I was super excited. My 10-year-old mind was freaking out. And I actually convinced my parents to give me a copy, to pay the $15 a month. I was like, no, I'll just do the free month. It'll be okay, the free 90 days or whatever it was at the time. And the first night that I logged in after school, I had no idea what I was doing. There were so many things that didn't make sense to me. I couldn't figure any of it out. And this guy came up to me, and he looked like he'd been playing the game for a super long time. He had like a full set of armor. I don't remember what class he was, but he's like, oh no, I'm an expert at this. I've been playing for months, and if you just come over to this area, there are really easy enemies to kill, and you'll level up fast. Don't worry about it, and I'll help you out. I'll help you kill him. We'll do it together. And along the way, he was asking me questions. He was saying like, oh, you know, I'm from New York. You know, this is what it's like in the big city. I'm from the Midwest at the time, so all of this is very fascinating to me. I grew up in a super small town. And the minute that we sort of step away from the main area, dude just kills me, runs away. That's what he does. And I'm just sitting there feeling more wronged than my 10-year-old self had ever felt. And I uninstalled EverQuest and didn't pick up MMOs again until World of Warcraft.
Space Station Silicon Valley on the N64 totally wasted me. So if you're not familiar with this game, it was the guys who eventually started, eventually did the Grand Theft Auto series. And instead of hopping into different cars, you're hopping into these robotic animals that have different functions and stuff with a little microchip. So anyways, there, as many games have, especially open world games, there were collectibles to grab. And you'd pick up all these collectibles, and at the end, you would get an extra bonus level. Problem is, this is an N64 cartridge, and there was no patches or anything that could be done about it. And the last collectible, it was not tagged correctly. So when you went to pick it up, you just kind of walked through it, and it was just forever just sitting there floating, taunting you, and nothing you could do would get over it. The only upside, there were still cheat codes in those days, and you could just put in a cheat code and get to the level like that.
Demon Souls to me. So there's NPCs you rescue or meet throughout the game. They all hang out at the Nexus. You get spells from them, items, things like that. Good stuff everyone needs in an RPG to level up. During the Tower of Latria section in, 3.2? Something like that. There's a character named Yurt, the Silent Chief. And he's like, hey, let me out of here. He's like, we're hunting demons together. I'm like, all right, dude, you're cool. Let's hunt demons together. Let him out. He thanks me. He eventually ends back up at the Nexus, and he's there. He's kind of sketchy, but I had no idea what's going on this thing. I'm like, whatever, this game's weird. Everyone's weird in here, whatever. Business as usual. Turns out, this guy kills your NPCs that you interact with in the game. So he is killing the vendors that I'm going to, getting my spells at. I got f***ed out of a trophy because of that asshole. I couldn't get all my magic from him, and I'll never forget Yurt, the Silent Chief, for that.
What in the devil is wrong with you? What can you gain by killing me?
Silent Hill 1 f***ed me. I was playing the whole game. I got to the end boss, and I think it was one of the bosses where you're gonna get like a crappy ending. I think it was like the worst boss. But I could only fight or deal damage with ranged weapons, with my handgun and etc. And I had no ammo. I ran out of ammo because I didn't manage my stuff effectively. And I mean, I was younger, so maybe I was just missing something, but it seemed as though I could not damage the boss. I could survive indefinitely because I could just run around. You could miss the attacks really easily. So I was just trapped in the boss forever. I couldn't kill it, couldn't die really if I mean there was no, and my save was right there, so I couldn't get more ammo, so I was just stuck there forever. I got f***ed by Silent Hill.
What in the devil's name?
13 f***ed me. So back in the original Xbox, there's a game called 13. There was a very interesting first-person shooter. It was cel-shaded. It was a murder mystery because the president gets assassinated, and I think you're on this on the Secret Service, or you're just a member of his cabinet or something, and you get accused of the crime. So you're running around. There are lots of different locations. It's just a very interesting, visually looking game because it was cel-shaded, but it was a shooter. Really enjoyed it, and my gameplay experience with 13 came to a crashing halt when I entered a level that was in a submarine. And the level required absolute stealth to the point of instantly failing you if you made noise. This doesn't mean that like guards would come rushing in and there were too many of them to fight, so you would fail. The game would instantly fail if you shot a weapon that made any kind of noise. And the only weapon that you could use to kill people on the submarine was a crossbow. And there was no crossbow ammo in the level. And it saved the amount of ammo that I had from previous levels, and I didn't have any crossbow ammo. So I couldn't play the level. And the game was over. There was nothing I could do. There was no way to progress. I only had one save that I had overwritten going into the game. And so because I did not have the ammo that they required and did not give me the ammo in that level, I could no longer play the game. And to this day, I have not seen the ending of 13 for the original Xbox, which may be good, I don't know, but it f***ed me, so I couldn't finish it.
Arcanum f***ed me. So there's this game, Arcanum of Steamwork and Magic Obscura, that's really good. It's like the old Fallouts. It's like isometric, running aroundy. You can be a mage or a tech person or stuff like that. It's really cool. But I was in the main city and I died somehow. And my body was just laying there in the street of the city. And I'm like, well, all right, crap. So I went to load my game, but I hit save instead, which saved over my game. So then I could go into the game and load my save and watch my dead body sit there on the road as townspeople wandered around, and my followers were just like, oh, hey, we better get going, or whatever. Yeah, so that kind of me.
In Arcanum, the old ways of magic and the new ways of technology collide.
Darksiders 2 f***ed me. So I got OCD. I need to finish every single game I play, even if it's as bad as Never Dead. I have to finish. I have to do everything in a game, completionist. It's brutal. So Darksiders 2, not a short game. I'm like 30 hours into this thing, loving it, way more than the first game. Deep into the game, 30 hours, have done all the side quests. I'm at the very end of the game. I'm like 30 minutes away, I later discovered after I looked it up. There's a switch you have to push that opens a door to progress. I pushed the switch. The door didn't open. Just looking around, I'm like, am I doing something wrong? This is a puzzle game after all. There's all these different blocks and balls I gotta move around. Like, oh, I gotta be doing something wrong. I reload the game. The switch is pushed already, locked in place. The door is still shut. I look online, I look on forums, YouTube, NeoGAF, Cheat Code Central, the whole 9 yards. Everyone's like, yo, you can get a game-breaking bug in this situation. Never finished Darksiders 2. Looked up the ending later. I'm fucking pissed. I'll never play any game in that series again.
I've beaten death once, and I can do it again.
Conduit 2. So I got totally messed up by Conduit 2. Because I was doing the review before the patches came out, and their save system was not very adequate, basically. So what would happen was, in this shooter, it would just auto-save constantly, and it didn't have like 2 checkpoints or manual saving or go and replay a level, start over a level or anything. It was just like, you just kept saving as you moved through the game. And I got to this point where I went through a door and there were enemies, and so I strafed to the right, but it was dark and I didn't see there was a pit next to me, and I fell into the pit. Well, the game decided to save right as I was falling into the pit. And so when it reloaded the game, I was just falling into the pit again, and restart, all the good stuff, just constantly falling into a pit.
Oh well, no one ever said saving the world would be easy.
This week, we scored the rockin' gameplay launch trailer for Halo 5 Guardians on our main YouTube channel. We also scored the latest Dragon Quest game, Heroes, on our second channel, GT Reviews. We'll see you next week for another GT Countdown.